Hello, this video is for my friends who have asked me to help them with photography, just taking it up, because I'd been doing it for I don't know, maybe a year or two. I'm not that good, so not everything I say is going to be absolutely spectacular. So those of you who I don't know, bear with me. Since it's also 6 a.m. and kind of dark outside and it's wintry, I don't really feel like showing my face in this video yet, so apologies for it being boring and whatnot. But anyway, the camera, I think I know a couple of you have something similar to this, but my camera isn't Rebel XSI, so if I might be able to walk you through some of this stuff on here so that it'll look familiar to you. Forgive me, because this is a piece of paper. It's kind of really lame. But I just want to explain a few things that, in order to get a good picture, you do have to balance basically just 3 things. Try and keep it simple so you can understand, but, not that you're dumb or anything, kind of mean. I just mean to help keep it simple. Anyway, the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture, which is also known as the f-stop. Firstly, the ISO is also known as the film speed. It's kind of the measurement of silver halide in 35mm film, but it also relates to digital cameras as well. The film speed is, well, it's not, like you have film or anything in there. It's a CCD card, an image sensor. Same system. It serves the same purpose. Bleh, I can talk. Anyway, the smaller granules of silver halide in the 35mm film, the smaller they are, the smaller this number here. So the 100 would have really tiny, tiny, tiny pieces in there, which makes it nice and smooth and not very grainy. The higher up you go, the bigger the chunks are in there. This picks up the light a lot faster, but there's, pros and cons to each. This one is less sensitive to light versus that, but this looks a lot smoother versus that being very grainy, and a lot of this stuff is very visible in there. These are fast because they pick up the light a lot faster than the slow ones. I'd say average would be around 400. Everyone seems to like that. What I did in my photography class for my 35mm, it makes it nice. But honestly, with my digital, I actually stay around 100. Oh, anyway, I'll show you the readout on my camera so you can see where these things are located. Gotta turn it on. So the ISO, right there. On mine, you can change it there. Use this little wheel to scroll down to select whichever one you would like, and displays it right there. Next we have the aperture, which I like to think of kind of like the pupil of an eyeball. It's kind of hard for me to explain because I'm not very articulate, so bear with me. But the numbers are also commonly seen as f-stops, and the difference between saying aperture and f-stop is an f-stop is the actual measurement of the physical aperture, and the aperture meaning, like inside the camera lens, this, pardon my really crappy drawings, it's 6 a.m., please. But that would be the pupil size, and it's these little blades that squeeze together in order to change that, kind of like your eyeball. But anyway, the bigger the number, it's kind of counterintuitive, the smaller the pupil, or the aperture. So an f22 would be very small in comparison to an f1.4. That looks really drugged out. Anyway, so I guess a Wikipedia, of course, can't really trust it. It says the diameter of the aperture stop rather than the physical stop or the opening of itself. I have no idea what that means, but I just know that it serves that purpose there. The bigger the pupil, the more light will come in. Therefore, you get flooded. And that's great in dark situations, kind of like when you walk outside and it's really pitch black. Versus if it's really, really sunny, your eyes are going to squeeze down and make your eye's aperture a lot more, so you can see. A lot smaller so you can see. And lastly is the shutter speed, which is how fast the shutters open to expose light onto the film or the CC sensor, which is for, of course, the digital. Anyway, you'll often see numbers that just look like that, or this. And it's kind of confusing at first when you're like, what the hell is this quotation mark in there? That's actually 2 seconds. 2.5 seconds. Versus 100, which would be 1/100th of a second. That's versus 4,000. Again, the 4,000 would be 1/4000th of a second. Anyway, Also a term you'll hear with shutter speeds is a long exposure. And a long exposure would be, a lot longer, of course. It's a little easy to figure out. So it'd be 5 seconds, for example, would be a long exposure versus 1/500th of a second. I have with me one of my older cameras. I'm not sure which one is. AT1. Old 70s thing or something. I think it's 70s. Anyway, I can show you an example of the shutter speed because it's actually this little thingy there. Let me adjust here. So, let me adjust it here since I need 2 hands to do this. Here's an example of 1 second shutter speed. 1/500th. It's very, very quick. Right here, of course, is the... What am I looking at? It's the shutter speed. That's bad. Anyway, you can change that with this wheel here. That would adjust the number on there. The one over here to... Sorry, it's difficult to do with one hand. What did I press? This over here is the aperture, or the f-stop, and that can be equally changed. With mine, I'm not sure how yours is. It says AV, but when you hold that down, it'll switch over to that. But that's when you're in manual mode, and that's usually where I stay. But for you, it might be different. And again, you hold it down and rotate this wheel, and then you can adjust your aperture.